Hey, let's check in on Dune Prophecy. We're 3 episodes in, that's halfway through the season. And they're doing a pretty good job in keeping with the aesthetics of the movies. You know, I myself wanted something different, but I understand HBO, they wanted to keep it consistent with that franchise they got going. So far, midway through, should you tune in right now? You could wait until the finale and see what people are saying before you dip in. Unless, you know, you're really into the movies and really into this Dune story, or are very much interested in the goings-on, the history of the Bene Gesserit and the politics of the houses, the Atreides, the Emperor, the Harkonnens, leading up to what's going to happen in the movies. This is set, of course, 10,000 years before. Then I think you'll find a lot to like about it. But the pacing so far isn't the best right now. The flashbacks detract a bit from their overall momentum that the show has been going on, but things could turn around for the better in these upcoming episodes. So we'll have to see. But as for some more detailed thoughts on these last episodes, episodes 2 and 3, let us go into the spoilers. Really, my main issue with these last 2 episodes leading into the halfway point here of the season is just the pacing overall. I think the second episode is the stronger one of these last 2. We did focus on, I guess, capturing Desmond Hart. So the way he's being held is pretty interesting. I like, you know, seeing these new technologies. I guess it's kind of similar maybe to the technology that the bad guy in the Dune movies has, where he floats in the air, but this is using that gravity magic power technology to keep him trapped. Most of the show, besides this little moment here, Theo's a bit too grounded. You know, I do wish it got a little bit freakier with the sci-fi stuff. They're trying to maybe appeal to non-sci-fi fans by like trying to keep the sci-fi stuff at a distance a bit, you know, because especially in episode 3, it almost doesn't even seem like a sci-fi show with the flashback. Basically, episode 2, you know, establishes the main conflict between Valya and Desmond here. At least to this, with like, we see that like now Desmond is part of the Emperor's team now. He's using Desmond's power to fry people up from the inside. He's all in on that violence now. And then, of course, we get to the ending, which I thought was pretty effective. Yeah, the moment where Valya here, echoing again the opening scene in the first episode where Valya used her voice to kill one of the Reverend Mothers, he's able to resist, you know, and that's like a new thing that she hasn't encountered. He's kind of like the sorcerer antagonist to her witchy powers. He says, like, it's not that no one will hear you, it's that they'll hear you and just won't care. You know, that's a pretty cool line. It establishes the main fear that she has thematically throughout the story too, of her wanting to be heard, and then finally able to use her power to force people to hear her. Now that's being ripped away from her by this guy who seems to have maybe been in contact with the big worm on Arrakis and been given that power. Also, the Bene Gesserit seem to be getting their power from the same worm, right? Because they use that blue juice. Isn't that blue juice from the worms to perform the agony? That was another key thing in this episode, the agony sequence, which I thought was also really effective. Oh yeah, another thing is the rebellion situation. This character is actually one of the sisters who is really like behind the rebellion against the Emperor. The idea is that they're stoking this rebellion to create some instability so they can better control what's going on, but now Valya wants to back off from the rebellion to give the Emperor more power. The combat trainer for the princess is an Atreides and is also a key part of the rebellion movement. That gives a little bit more depth to the Bene Gesserit here, that they're not just, you know, trying to get in the ears of the top houses, they're also in the trenches with the people, the rebellion. So that's all cool. That's interesting. We also get, of course, the agony sequence. This is probably one of the more creepy moments of the series so far. The key moment here in this episode, really the most important lore moment here is when this is Raquella. This is the Mother Superior that died of just old age, right? In the first episode, and she's speaking through Lila here. The key to the reckoning is one born twice, once in blood, once in spice. That could allude to a number of characters. We could think as far ahead as maybe Paul Atreides. Was he someone born in spice, and when he went to Arrakis and was reborn there? And also, that could also just mean Lila. It looks like in the next episode she might be reborn through spice. And then what Valya thinks is that it could mean Desmond Hart, because he was supposedly died in Arrakis to the worm and was reborn. So that's the main mystery here. Who is this prophecy referring to? I thought she died here, actually, but it turns out she just goes into a coma. That's a big blow to Tula here, because this is her favorite student. So she also says, I think this might be the voice of the other sister that was killed by Valya. Reverend Mother Dorothea, you stole my future. Now I'm taking your hope. Maybe she's the one who puts Lila in a coma in revenge. Then episode 3, we flash back, and it kind of disrupts the momentum here again. We're going back to young Valya and Tula before they join the Bene Gesserit. It's very much close to the Game of Thrones situations where we got, two families warring against each other. Here in this case, it's the Harkonnen versus the Atreides. It appears that the Atreides killed Valya's brother here. It kind of skips it, right? We don't see the moment where the Atreides kill her brother here. It feels like it was purposely not shown for maybe to show it later. The issue with these flashbacks, I think, is just that they feel like they're not in their proper place, and some of it just feels superfluous. As I mentioned before in the episode 1 review, I felt like the beginning prologue was a bit rushed. Maybe what worked better for me is if some of these scenes with Valya and maybe Tula here were integrated more in episode 1, and then episode 2 and forward are more focused on the contemporary timeline. And then maybe, strategically put in some flashbacks here and there. It just feels disjointed, and it feels like disruptive to their overall narrative. I mean, yeah, it's nice to see some backstory for Tula here. She's also seems to be doing some devious things. The whole sequence here is that she ends up poisoning this group of Atreides. Basically, these are the Atreides that she takes out in vengeance of them taking away her brother. The Romeo and Juliet twist here of her revealing that she's actually a Harkonnen, I think was well placed, was well told here. The tragedy of it being that he didn't hate her for being part of this rival family, to the point that he realizes that she's just there to kill them all. Maybe this would have been better introduced in the first episode, or maybe even a full episode of Tula's perspective, and then another episode of just Valya, instead of going back and forth like this. Another reason why I did think overall that the romance here was effective is because we did get to build it up in this episode. Like, we got plenty of scenes with this Atreides guy that she, I guess you can say, seduced and betrayed. Perhaps similar to what's going on with the princess in the contemporary timeline and her interest with her sword master, who's also an Atreides. Maybe that's a little bit of foreshadowing for what's to come with them. That romance love scene in the club, I think, was appropriately placed, as opposed to the scene with the prince and lady Shannon. That feels a bit superfluous. Like, I don't mind the nudity and the sexiness of it. They're pretty sexy actors. It feels like just a little bit of sex position. I get that there's like some spy crafting going on here. She's trying to get some information from him. Maybe her sole purpose for this in this show is just for her to be in this scene, really, because we didn't really get to know her at all in the previous episode. We just got some brief moments of her glancing at the prince here, and according to IMDb, she's only in 2 episodes, so it doesn't seem like she's going to be here anymore. while the prince, is certainly going to be in more episodes, and we already got to know him. We already got to know his personality a bit with the scenes with his sister. He's pretty well established, so it just feels like a bit of a disservice to have this character Lady Shannon, this actress, introduced solely for the purpose of a sex scene, right? At least make it interesting, because this is a sci-fi show. They're taking this like blue cocaine spice drug, right? Why not heighten the scene by make it more wild, make it more trippy or something? At least make it something interesting to look at, besides just let's fill the quota of like, okay, let's have some sexy sex in this series, so maybe she will show up again and be more pivotal, but which will maybe give this scene a little bit more weight to it, but it doesn't like it. So I guess I just wanted to point that out, the differences between what may be a good romance scene, a good love scene, sex scene, versus a not so good one. But again, we get more backstory for Valya's character, and here's the moment where she rejects the process of going through the agony because she's concerned with her family. So she goes back to kind of close the book on her family drama here. She uses the voice to shut her mother up. For a second there, it almost looked like she was gonna force her mother to kill herself, but she stopped. It gives Valya a bit of some heart there, right? She's not completely evil. So maybe, I don't know, so maybe they should have gone through with it. Maybe that would have been, more of a rewarding experience to see her, as this supreme awful character who maybe by the end of the series gets her comeuppance. I don't know. We'll have to see. But they decide to go maybe a little safer. It's like, oh, let's actually not make her completely evil. So she decides to do her agony situation. I was expecting a little bit more from the agony sequence. They don't want to overstimulate us with too much trippy agony sequences. But now Tula and Valya are together again, and they are ready to go and become Bene Gesserits. Now flashing back to the present timeline, Valya has to now face her father again because she has to deal with Desmond Hart, the Emperor against her now. She has to maybe go back to her family to secure some more power. I mean, this is her father, right? So we'll see where that leads. But the big twist of this episode is that, now that we established that Lila is in a coma, Tula wants to bring her back to life. There was a little tease in the flashback with Valya that the Mother Superior, showed her Valya the technology that the Bene Gesserit are using to pick out the right heirs to gain power. They're using forbidden technology, she said. And of course, the forbidden technology is thinking computers, and here we are with now Tula tapping into this system, and the computer actually refuses at first, right? The computer's like, this is not an authorized request. Mother Valya is off planet. Oh, okay, so only Valya. So it looks like only Valya, because she's the main Mother Superior right now, is the one that can, I guess, override that. But I guess Tula just has to be like, I'm speaking for Valya, so it's okay. It's all right. We get this spray of spice, that will hopefully bring her back to life. But how will she come back to life? Will she be possessed by one of the other deceased mothers from the past? I think Lila here may be the one in the prophecy, the one that is reborn by spice. I feel like that's what the show kind of wants you to think, maybe. Maybe that's a red herring. I don't know. Yeah, so that's the first half of Dune Prophecy. I feel like it's staying a little bit too close to the tone, the vibe of the movies, and a show like Game of Thrones. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's also like kind of just like the baseline of what's expected from a contemporary Dune TV show. It feels like it's kind of just blending in with a lot of prestige fantasy TV, and I guess I just wish it would be a little bit more experimental, be a little bit riskier. And it's definitely having some pacing issues that I think may turn off someone who's not so much into the Dune mythology, right? But we'll see where it goes from here, because I guess we have half of it left still. It would appear that they'll probably pick up the pace now that they've established the backstories and the main conflict moving forward. So maybe these last few episodes will be a course correction and really make the whole season worth it. So I think it's best just to wait for the final episode to see where everything fits together, and then I can give my fuller thoughts on the series. I think my expectations have been lessened a little bit now that I am getting a better grasp of what the show is doing, but hopefully it can still surprise me. That's gonna be it for now. I guess I'll see ya at the end of the month for the big finale. See you then, under the moonlight. Bye bye.